So this week's Power and Politics, it features AI in government, specifically New York State. And we had a couple of really interesting conversations. That's why we made it two parts. The part with Beth Novak is also available as a podcast right now. She's the founder of Innovate US, which is facilitating this training going on in New York State that leads to this conversation that we're about to have here with Drew Rye. He's New York State's Chief Information Officer. And we could have talked to him for not just the 40-something minutes that we did, probably hours. As you know, AI is just layer after layer of conversations because there's so much involved with it. And we joked about it being Pandora's box at times during this because you have data centers, as you know, the power needed to be able to facilitate 130,000 people potentially using these chatbots, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, everything in between to help facilitate their work in New York State. And their goal here is to make their work more efficient, be able to collect data. But then there's also other things that, as you know, people have concerns about, and that's responsible AI use. What's happening with the data they're putting in? Is it sensitive data that is tied to maybe your information, your personal data in New York State that maybe you need through the DMV or some other way that you're known to the state in one way or another when it comes to taxes as well. So we get deeper into that and some of the safeguards they have put in place. And of course, you have the other conversations about the AI bubble and what that means in New York taking such a strong hand in being able to try to implement this among state government. I thought one of the really interesting points of this conversation was I asked him about jobs, and specifically for his agency, I said, well, is it replacing anybody? He goes, no, I've hired 2,000 people in the last couple of years since he came on the scene to be able to work with all these workers in the state, to be able to roll this out and use this as a tool. And I think that's where we get in this conversation going back and forth as to how much it's a tool and also where are some of the limitations that it can have and being very aware of those limitations and how far things go. And I think we do finish up with cybersecurity. And that is something we could have talked about for a lot longer because there are now AI aspects of cybersecurity that can do a lot of harm, especially to a state government and some of the measures that they have put in place to counteract that. That's a world all its own. It's actually an industry all its own. So we hope you enjoy this conversation with Drew Rye, really rather educational, informative, and hopefully you learn something too. We are joined today by Drew Rye. He is the New York State Chief Information Officer and also the Director of the Office of Information Technology Services. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for this conversation today.
Thank you, Tom, and morning.
Let's go broadly first. AI in government. Where are we in New York State right now? Maybe since you took the job a couple years ago, compared from then to now, this is a rapidly evolving space.
Yeah, I mean, AI has been evolving, and so is our application in the government. We wrote AI policy first, like how to use it, what is the limitations, how to work through it, and so on and so forth. Then we did a pilot with our partners Innovate US for training and Google Gemini as our LLM model. We perfected the tool in terms of privacy, security, and things like that. We have 1,000+ people, 7-8 agencies were involved. We found pretty positive results, and now we are rolling it out to all 130,000 employees. Our application of AI, ITS Pro, is very contextual. Although the model is in the cloud, but it's perimetered with our data center, so it's inside our four walls, if you want to call it. And yes, the model was pre-trained by Google in the public data, but now it's inside, and now it's getting reinforced learning with our own data. So that takes care of your security and privacy issue. So yeah, we have taken a rather careful approach. When we did the survey, 87% of surveyors said that they would like to use it. 74% found it productivity gain in that. And yeah, we have several use cases from basic summarization of conversation to finding which contract I have to renew. The software will tell you, all the way to, hey, can you write a code? So it'll be a good starting point for developers to take and fine tune and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's been a journey and it'll continue. We will partner with more providers and learn and work with them to fix it. We find that it's never going to be perfect. It's behind the scene, it's a probability. So security, privacy, accuracy, bias, you just have to watch it and just keep working with it. We decided to jump in instead of stand and fight. Once you jump in, then you understand the limitation, you understand what needs to work, and then you tell your partner, and there is a good understanding. The best part about the whole thing, what Governor did, was to really engage our employees. Our employees work very hard, as you can imagine. If you ask me, we do more work with less employees, and we see this as a productivity tool.
Yeah, can you expand a little bit upon, you brought up a couple examples there of what these workers are learning, will be learning, what's the scale of that?
Yeah.
And how much do they need to learn?
Yeah, so there's a variety of use cases. Think about, I want to summarize a lot of data. So you have 5 folders, an email, and 10 databases, and you want to find out, hey, can you summarize all the regulations about this topic? And it'll just go and take it out, and it'll be a great starting point. It may not be 100% accurate, but it'll give you 80, 90%, and then the last 10% you can go fill it out. If you want to, for example, in ITS, we have hundreds of softwares which we do, and it's constantly moving, making sure that there is no expiration, we are compliance with the contract and so on and so forth. Now this can go point to those folders, it'll look into it, and it'll tell you, well, here are the things which are coming up. So now you can plan instead of reacting. You want to develop a code. For example, we're working with Claude, and you put in, for example, I'll give you a live example. We're working on our IES program, and we took California code to see if we can reuse some of that code for some of our welfare programs. Using Gemini, we were able to reverse engineer and create workflows. So it looked at the code, there was no documentation, and next thing we know, it's like screens pop out. Were they perfect? No, but they were good, 60, 70% good. So you can take it, now you can finish it, sit down with the people. So the application is everywhere, including basic chats, like, okay, can you tell me about this, this, and this, and then it'll go everywhere. So the application is literally, I would say, a little bit of your imagination, a little bit of your training, and then what model can do. Each of the providers have strength. If you want to, for example, really do research, if you want to do coding, I will say use Claude. If you want to do like a consumer-based, I would say private sector, a lot of information about what's happening in sales, marketing, market, OpenAI. If you want a relatively same thing in a combination, go for Gemini. And there are lots of small language model. Llama is available, and that's open. So you can take it, you can create your own model, fine tune it, put on your own data. So this thing is, we're just getting started. We have a long way to go. There will be a lot of models, and we will see each model has strength and limitations.
So those models probably varying depending on the state agency of what each one needs. How about the use of that depending on agency? Is there a variance there?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say agency, but for example, contact centers. So whether it's a Department of Labor or Department of Tax, we are experimenting AI tools for both. I think one is IBM and one is probably Gemini. So we'll see which one is better, and maybe both of them will be fine. In IT, we code. We definitely finding Claude is an awesome tool. A lot of procurement areas, we have seen that OpenAI is a very promising tool, and even Gemini performs. And then you get into legal matters. There are specialized models created on top of these large language models, which do a better job of things. So I think it just depends probably on a process and data than agency itself, but several applications everywhere.
How far do you think it could go? Because I think, you go to the legislative side, and I know that there's bill drafting and things like that of it writing, laws and bills and legislation. Is that a goal here? Is that how, I think people might ask that and say, well, is it speaking for a lawmaker, or is the lawmaker, because we've had some of those test subjects in the past, and that's on the legislative side, but obviously through the state side, is that as far as it would go, or are there other applications you could see in the future?
Well, remember, the models are built on existing data. And when you think about the parameters in the model, which decides how far it can go, depends on how fitting and overfitting these models are. So they look at the input data. In the current scenario, they look at the output data. They tweak their parameters. And then it can do what ifs. So the limitations will be based on everything which has happened in the past or the current. It uses that as the starting point, and it can imagine a little extra simply based on what it has seen, the evolution of the data and the output data. Can it do some of the things? It can. It's hard to say how accurate it'll be because we human beings have extremely, and as a combined human race, we have extremely large imagination, and probably we are not even close. Although these models can process a lot of data, they are good at what we have today. But yeah, I mean, can you make a movie? Sure. Is it imaginative? Yes. Would it be, as good compared to a creative writer or producer? Well, it depends on the person who's consuming. It's possible that the consumers will say, no, I like Tarantino content. And this one is like way off.
Sometimes his films are way off.
Well, exactly,
which
to
is
your
what
point, right?
The human
and or not.
Yeah.
It's not as creative as you want. So I think, again, just we got to remember the transformers, when we say GPT, all these models are based on transformer. And transformer is nothing but a bunch of probability model, one after another put in. And these parameters, which use output and input data to fit in, decides the limitations or what it can do when it comes to these AI models.
You speak to the limitations, what it can do, and we talk a lot in government about checks and balances. When it comes to within this sphere, is there an infrastructure to be able to make sure that it's going out the door in the right way and those limitations are being accounted for before they see the public?
Yeah, I mean, I think the amount of data processing these models need is tremendous. So think about this. When ChatGPT came out with the first time, it took the world's all web information for 18 months, and that's what the model was pre-trained for. I mean, that is a humongous amount of data. So not is just a bunch of GPUs to process it, the amount of power you're going to need and utility you're going to need to make sure all those things work. So that's why, for example, when Governor passed, work with the private, we put our data center close to, Buffalo, where we can cool that thing. So the infrastructure-wise, the good news is this will create jobs because we're going to need a lot of infrastructure, including GPUs, CPUs, TPUs, and all other use. And then it's going to come down to power. But then we also have other human beings living and consuming power. So how are we going to make sure that the data center, does not jack up the utility costs for people who have nothing to do with this? At the same time, we all are using ChatGPT, well, in that sense. So at some extent, I think we're going to take burden of that. Hopefully, we protect the people who needs protection and who needs help. But yeah, I think just like any technology kind of shift, we all human have to figure out like how we're going to do it. There are well-offs and there are not so well-off. There are people who don't need protection and then people who need protection. And government job is to figure out and make sure that we have resources to help and protect people who need.
Yeah, more on that. You've mentioned the perimeter, right, that you've established here around this. And you mentioned a few different models there. How do you ensure it? I know Google is a part of your partnership, you could call it, with Innovate US. And how do you ensure that someone's data, the regular taxpayer of New York, that data that maybe someone could be putting into a model doesn't get out there? That data is protected?
Excellent question. And just not to kind of bore with the technology, but think about, I'll start with taxes. All tax data sits inside the four wall of our private cloud, so it's not even on public cloud. And it's a pretty much IBM stack. So we're working with IBM, and the data stays here. The AI model stays inside, even the hardware. So that's
And IBM doesn't have access to that from the
well,
outside?
IBM is, contractually they cannot take data out.
Okay.
Do they help us kind of improve the model using our data anonymously? Yes, but they're not allowed to take it out. So you take a look at your data. Not all data are kind of created equal when it comes to privacy and value. But PII, for example, is the most important thing. But then there is data where you can say, well, I can put this on a cloud as long as the cloud is protected. So we created what is called Outpost. And Outpost is, think roughly that each of these cloud providers, nothing but a real data center somewhere. Mm-hmm. And most of them have large data centers in Northeast. Our private data center, and that data center, we create a perimeter around it so that they talk to each other, but they do not leave that perimeter. And that outposting technique is a little painful, but it creates privacy and security. So my data goes to the model, comes back, stays inside, and there is no chance that it's going to go anywhere outside. So unlike other private sector, some of my colleagues are doing, unfortunately, fortunately, that's whole cloud, and they are tenants, just like your regular cloud, commercial clouds are. And you pass the data. But anybody having access, if they can penetrate the public cloud, then it's game over, and we don't allow that.
So like a state employee, when they're using Claude, Gemini, that's different than if someone, that's a different module, it's working out of a different parameter.
Correct.
Than the general public, the way they log in, and just to put it down to layman's terms.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah.
So when we put for general public that, hey, you can prompt this and get this information, they are coming in, and we use NY.gov for security and checking out who they are, where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And they're asking questions, but the data is coming inside.
Yeah.
And first of all, we never expose any PII regardless on chat for anybody. It doesn't matter who they are. Even if it be a real citizen, we are not going to tell them exact PII on chatbot. But they can get a lot of information, like which office to go when it's open, some basic stuff, so that you don't have to call customer service or you have to go visit. But you're absolutely correct. In layman terms, everything is sitting inside, very tightly controlled. And all employees we use as productivity are all within the firewall. The outsiders, they don't get to see all those things. They only get to see any chatbot, for example, information, and that's completely separated. So that's correct.
We were just talking, there was a podcast this morning by the New York Times talking about the software world and coding. And there were some concerns there that they had a little piece on it of individuals who were in that space saying some of their skills are eroding because the computer, the AI is taking over that in such a way. Any concerns about that here in this space?
Well, I think that's in general, everybody's job is going to change. It's probably not going to go away, but it'll change. My job is changing. I mean, because AI can do a lot of things which I will consider low value add, and now I can do higher value add. So in coding, obviously like any artist, you have to get the canvas, you have to put this, and you have to do that, and then there is a fine print you have to do. Well, think about the AI can do a lot of groundwork for you. So you can, create those lines and the eyes and the shade of the color of the eye so leave your special skills for them, but it can do a lot of groundwork. Can it replace human? I mean, that's hard to say at this point of time. But when it comes to software design, it creates a pretty good code, 60-70%. Is it perfect? No, it's good 60-70%. But now it's just accelerated. So what it will take the team 10 days, Now it's taking 5 or 6 days. But you got to know how to use it. That's the other part. If you don't know how to use AI, there is a whole, and I'm finding the young generation who is like just popping out of the college and it's like they don't know any other way, they are probably better because they know what to prompt and how to get that output better. So yes, I think all SaaS companies, if you watch the stock market, every SaaS company, stock is anywhere from 30 to 60, 70% down. So all software companies who wrote the program use human beings and put it in the cloud and charge you a license, they are all in jeopardy. I mean, I'm going to replace a lot of them because it's taxpayer money. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Why would I pay expensive software when Claude can come write a case management tool? Yeah, I'll take that. It'll save me a ton of money, and I can use the money to modernize and do other stuff. So yeah, just like other business processes, the code development, the code design is getting impacted, and it's kind of funny to say that the AI actually going to impact the software industry itself more than anybody else. That's the funny part about this whole thing, that the model is impacting SaaS. All business service applications are in jeopardy. Everybody's stock is down.
In a lot of cases, those that created it, right? The individuals that helped bring
Exactly.
this to light. In government, you just mentioned something in terms of can it replace people? In New York, has it?
No, I'm dying to hire. I mean, we have hired 2,000 people in the last 2 years just in my agency. And I would like to upgrade my folks. So, in any IT shop, I have high-end value because my clients and my customers and citizens are looking for better experience, faster things. And then low, so I'm trying to see how can I take my folks for a higher value add, where there is a direct impact and faster impact and productivity gain, and I can do more for our citizens with less.
Even if it's making someone more efficient, they're not taking on different work that could be someone else. You think instead, you know what I'm saying? If someone is utilizing these programs, these models, and making maybe something that's 8 hours, normally 4, that extra 4 that they're not filling for someone else, or?
Well, that's a really good question. As I said, 100 years ago, we used to cobble shoes with our hand. I don't think we are cobbling shoes with hand. I mean, there are few specialists. So yeah, that's going to happen. But the amount of work I have, as far as I can see, I can tell you that if I get 2,000 more people, I still am a gap. So,
What are those 2,000 people, what do you want them to do?
Oh, I support 57 executive agencies, whether it's a DOH, DOL, DMV. Who likes DMV system? Nobody, right?
It's new now.
It's
they
new.
just reformed it.
It's awesome.
Redid
I mean,
it
took us so much. Thanks to Governor, we are in the middle of a rollout. And so, there is a new unemployment system coming up. I mean, COVID, for example, exposed so much. I need more money. I mean, and I'm very thankful to Governor, don't get me wrong, but we always use taxpayer money. So, I got to be very careful what I ask. And there's so much modernization. I can do modernization for every agency has a modernization issue. I mean, IES program, which is the eligibility program working with the federal government, is a great example. We have to modernize. We serve, 20 plus million active New Yorkers and a lot of retirees and out of state. Every system, every web application, from user experience to how long, I mean, I still have mainframe. Tax is getting away from mainframe. DMV was mainframe. We are getting away from mainframe. Docs is still on mainframe. We're working towards a plan. OTDA is on mainframe. That's the IES program. So we're working on a 45, 50-year-old technology. Is it good? Well, no. I mean, people are not just retiring, they're dying. I'm begging people to come out of retirement and save until I modernize. So the amount of work we have for our citizen, at least as far as I can see, is so much that if my 4,000 or 5,000 employees can deliver double, I'll take it.
So when Okay, yeah. So when the budget director came out to the agencies in the fall and said, "Tell me how you're going to make work more efficient and you're maybe look for some savings in your department," what was your response?
Oh, we have a laundry list of. I mean, for example, we've been working on enterprise agreements with identifying large contractors. I just look at the number. We've already saved $56 million of hard money if we didn't go through ITS contract because we are very price conscious. I can do more if I have, again, it's not just the dollar. I have to train people. In my forte, it's not the quantities, the quality also counts. So 5,000 of lower quality versus 5,000 higher quality, you can double your output. What I really need I'm very thankful for a budget director. I'm very thankful. I think we have enough resources, but we're going to need more. And the best part is this AI is helping us. Fortunately, unfortunately, even these AIs are not perfect, as I said. So you have to just keep up. Sometimes you could walk in and you find you're disappointed. It's like, oh man, it can't do this. Sometimes you go and you find, oh yeah, it can do something. You take that. So a lot of experimentation, and I hate to say it, sometimes it's a waste of time, but unless you spend your time, you really don't know what you're going to get.
You mentioned some agencies there that were included in the beginning of the month, the comptroller report. And I think it's interesting because that went from 2019 to November 2024. You came on in 2023. Yeah. And obviously, we're 2 years removed. And of course, as we know, the auditing process takes time and it has to look at certain data. One of the conclusions there for that time period, obviously we're here in 2026, was New York State does not have effective AI governance framework. So my question to you is, when you came in 2023, what did you find? What did you see? What did you think that needed to be addressed, considering that was the conclusion that the comptroller came up with for that time period in which you came on the scene at the end of that?
Yeah, I think the auditing was probably done before. When I got in, there was no AI usage.
Right, because I think in your response from your department, it was very much like, okay, here in 2020, this is what we implemented, this is how we address these things.
So the first thing we did was, I think, we wrote the policy. It's like, okay, what is the policy?
So there was no policy?
There was no policy,
yeah.
So we wrote the policy, and the policy is not rocket science. We went with the NIST standard. We defined what is AI, what's not AI, how to use it, how not to use it, what are its limitations, so on and so forth. So this became sort of a guideline to everybody. Because the problem with AI, and it will continue to grow, is it's not going to be ChatGPT, Llama, and the frontier model, as we call them. It's going to be embedded in every software. You won't even know where AI is and where. So I think we are moving towards where the output decides it's AI or not whether it's AI or not. So if a software vendor which does case management or welfare management decides to put a large language model behind the scene through an API, which you don't even know, the output of that software to the users will decide, it's like, did I do that? No. It inferred using a language model behind the scene, and this is the result. That is the way we are approaching. Now, so as I said, it's a result-oriented. The policy covers that, and the policy very clear people in the loop. We do not allow software to make decisions on behalf of New York citizen. And embedding the human beings as part of this takes away most of the risk and reduces the bias and inaccuracy. So when they did that, it was premature. After that, we took a tool. There are a lot of models available. We partnered with Google, and then we experimented it. Then we invited Innovates, like, okay, now we got to train our people. So see what happens. I would say it was a little slower. My colleagues in many places were like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I'm like, okay, well, we're just going to be methodical as we go. And our bet paid off because, as I said, if you don't use without proper guardrails, it can give you, not only it'll give you wrong results, it wastes your money. We use taxpayer money. We're not going to chase shiny object just because something is. So we got to, I would rather be a number two and more accurate and good steward of taxpayer money versus number one and waste a lot of time, energy, and come first. I'm not sure what was the deal.
Do you have an example of when AI is being used right now? It might not have been in government, that people might not know, that would help?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that whether it's a user, we have other term called super users, because all users are not created equal. Take the coders out, the people who create if users and super users do not know how the output was generated, it's like a magic,
Right, yeah.
then you better start looking into it, because there is no magic.
Right.
Whether it's an AI model or non-AI model, a simple automation, a deterministic model, which is not using intelligence but using all these pre-created rules, you got to understand the result which you got, how it was generated. If it is based on the rules we created, well, it's deterministic. Put it down. Oh, it's just the automation of 18 steps. Or this one is transformer generated. GPT, doesn't matter, it's Gemini, Llama, whatever it is. Well, remember, it's a probability behind the scene use. So that means the model was pre-trained on some random data outside, public data mostly. Hopefully brought in and reinforced, trained on your own context and your own data, because if it is still using the outside, then it's going to be. So you need to understand, how did you get that? Because even you do a reinforced learning does not mean that the pre-trained learning is gone. No. Because, so for example, if a model was trained on public data, which has inaccuracies, bias, just like we all human beings create, sometimes on purpose, sometimes on not, the model, the transformers and their parameters are based on that data. Now you bring it in, and now you're reinforcing with your own internal data. But remember that your internal data is very limited. The size and scale of that is limited compared to that. So it will fine-tune it, but it will not completely change it. That means you'll still have inaccuracies. You'll still have biases. And the best way is, if you don't know how the output is, put the person in the loop and figure it out. There is no magic. If you think it's magic, then you don't know what you're doing.
What can you say to calm some of those fears, anxieties that people might have about not only in their own lives, but in their government of AI being implemented?
Well, I would say that be vigilant. I mean, this is one of those things, trust, but don't trust, check or verify. So we don't need to take like, oh, this is the best thing after the slice of bread, or this is going to kill us. The answer is somewhere in the middle. So take it, understand it, take a look at how it's creating output, find the biases, find the inaccuracies, work with your teams and provider of this model to fix it. Or at least if you know the limitation, then explain to people that this model has this limitation. So even the answer is providing, please take with a grain of salt, double check a few things. We have to make AI transparent. Unless this black box is not opened up, people are going to have distrust. We as a government have a responsibility, without exposing somebody's intellectual property, we have to open this black box to the public and show what exactly. So we just passed the legislation. Working with the DFS, all the frontier model have to prove that this is, without giving the IP, these are the limitations, these are the bias, these are the accuracy, and so on and so forth. So we can give it to public and say, well, these models come with this limitations, so please be aware. And until we open these giant black boxes, which are very complex, very technical, but this is democracy. We have to give credit to a public, they can understand that.
Does it take stronger legislation to do that? to open these black boxes that you just mentioned?
Yeah, I
a
think
step
that these
there?
black box, I mean, New York is doing it already. We are, I don't know about other states, but I think I know California is doing it. Federal government has kind of
Well,
taken
that's
back.
that's the question. The federal government's hand in this. We had an executive order not long ago saying they did that. It's a patchwork that we don't want companies dealing with.
Yeah, the federal government argument of that, this is a race against foreign government like China may be true, but it does not answer the question of, well, 350 million Americans, do they understand what they're up to? Because once this black box is open, the models are more transparent, then the public can adopt, react, change, help it build. I personally believe that, obviously there's intellectual property. So it is, we are a capitalism, so we have to protect people who have been working for decades. At the same time, if this thing is going to do a human, for everybody is going to uplift it, you can argue maybe it's like a utility, or maybe it's a rocket science. So the question is, which one is it? And my gut tells me that it's both, and it just depends on the evolution. We will see a ton of small language model, which are already coming in there, which are more accurate, more fast. They don't even need giant energy and GPUs. They can run on CPUs and do the job. There are limitations. They're small. They're more narrowly focused. Their use cases is not thousands and hundreds. The use cases is 10, 15. They're more efficient. So we're going to see these models change for specific purpose, thereby reducing our demand for infrastructure. And I would say that the open models, there will be a lot of open models going to come out. The more open models come out, more companies create using those open models, more knowledge is passed, more good, bad, and ugly is shown to people. Because you want to see good, bad, and ugly about these models, not just the great or not great. Because unless you see how these models process, and that's why I encourage people. It's like, hey, I know not everybody loves probability, but you want to go back and take a look at some of those basic math. And these models are simply based on that. I believe that human creativity is probably much, much bigger, not just an individual, but as a race, as a community, as a state, as a nation. But they are catching up. And but I think we are very starting point of AI. We as a human being are like beyond AGI. Remember, what we are creating is our understanding of our own brain,
Right.
which is still limited. That's one of the organs which is least understood, because no amount of cadaver you can create. You die, your brain is dead, so you cannot,
Right.
If I want to check your brain, I have to do it while you're alive, which is almost impossible.
Yeah.
So we are creating replicating a brain, which is, you can just use imagination, like, it can process a lot of things because it's now artificial, but it's going to have a lot of limitations.
Where do you want it to be in 5 years, from your standpoint, from where you operate?
I think I see in 5 years, this will become probably we're not going to use the word AI. We'll be more specific. There'll be so many models that it'll be, it will not be a model conversation. It'll be a use case conversation.
It'll be like internet browsers, right?
Yeah,
where you're using Explorer, you're using Chrome, that kind of thing.
I think it's going to go from, there will be some internet browsers, and there are already internet browsers being built,
Yeah.
all the way to very sophisticated, your watch will have it. There will be edge AI. Your maps are going to get more efficient. Your car's going to get more. It's going to start embedding, because right now it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We now have to put it, can we do the aviation management using that? Can it reduce the clouds in the sky and reduce the accident on the ground and in the air? I think we're going to start seeing some of the very specific cases, because those models are going to, starting from generalized, and going to start becoming very specialized. So we'll have, I would say, AI. There's some good, Your glasses probably, hopefully, will be AI. Your watch will be AI. Your home will have more. Alexa is not going to call you every time you say something. It'll be a little more smart than that. But I also believe that we're not going to dress in chrome and have a flying car in 5 years either.
We thought we were like 100 years ago. And within all of this, and obviously that's on the advancement level, but you alluded to this earlier with software companies and what's going on right now when it comes to the markets and value. The AI bubble we've heard a lot about recently. From where you operate in government, is there a ripple effect of a bubble bursting? And obviously that there's one side of the state investment with the comptroller and all of that. We know that in terms of investment in different companies. But from you, if for some reason, do you see that happening and how that impacts what you do? Is that at all on the radar?
I mean, not from the government. We are more of a consumer of technology,
Sure,
but
yeah.
I kind of do. When I look at the industry, software writing has evolved in the last 30 years. There was a time when we didn't have web, by the way.
Yep.
Everything was client-server based. I think the days of writing a code and forgetting it and just writing some releases with human beings are over. Now the code will be drastically written by AI, will be patched by AI, will be upgraded by AI. Not all. But the amount, so there will be more intelligent software coming. So when you look at the market, there is a bifurcation happening. Mm-hmm. All the SaaS company, business applications, their stocks are taking a dive.
Yeah.
All companies which have already embedded AI component with partnership, it's going to go up. And we are seeing the divergence. I mean, take a look at Microsoft stock. Copilot and this and that. Take a look at Now. It's already down $60, $70. Yeah. Take a look at ServiceNow. Take a look at Salesforce. And they have a long way to go because building a LLM is no joke. It's a industry by itself. So, even Microsoft is going to have a hard time. I mean, it took Google a lot of time to develop, but they had that, search engine expertise, so they were able to crank this out. Catching up with OpenAI is going to be hard. Claude just came out from left field, and there are all a bunch of engineers replicating Claude. But cybersecurity firm who are purely dependent on writing software going to have a hard time. But the software, if they have data, remember, I used to say this, data is the asset. That's what is showing right now. If you write a software and your client control all the data, your software is not intelligent because it's not using data to make it smarter, that's going to have a hard time. If you have the data and you're somehow able to use data to make your software and everybody else's software smarter, well, you got value. And then obviously behind the scene, the model creators, behind the scene, the infrastructure creators, and then electricity, utility, and whatnot. All those things are going to change.
I think I'll finish up with this, and I know we'll be going long here, but you brought up cybersecurity. That was on my list because I think that's another issue when it comes to AI specifically. Of sometimes you have these entities that are built on hacking and with AI, and there's a whole industry of hacking going on right now. That's lucrative, obviously in a very dark way, right? That's a very malicious way, and then you have an infrastructure of people that try to avoid that. They're I think it's what's the word for hacker? They're
ethical hacking.
Ethical hacking.
Yeah.
Do you have that?
That's a real thing. We have a red team. Our full-time job is to run around, take a look at the dark web, what's happening. Yeah, it's like when we probably invented the knife, to cut vegetable. There were some people. It's like, I'm going to use it to kill somebody. So whether we like it or not, the bad guys use technology to do the bad things probably faster than anything else because that's their job, that's their earning, that's how they earn money. So this is a cat and mouse play. The people who are using AI to not just hack, but throw social engineering and do, You know, it's like you getting a text and a call. It's like, oh, well, your son is at the police station, and you just have to do this.
Yeah.
Some of them are not even asking for money, by the way.
Yeah.
Some of them just want to check you out in the first time that, are you real Tom?
Mm-hmm.
Is this your real number? Is that your house? Is that your address? I mean, they're doing this social engineering AI application is an industry by itself. There are people employed all over the world, outside the United States mostly, there are hundreds of people, not only as a human being, but they are trained by AI and they use AI. Most of the spam today is not created by humans.
Right.
It's all, you don't even know where this come from. You know, it's funny that I write a thank you note to people using AI with a good purpose, because I have to write 4,000 people, so it's very hard to write manually. But in old style, that's what we will do. Now I'm able to generate those mails and send it. At the same time, that's exactly what the other guy is doing on the other side, which is using my name, my contact, as if the mail comes from me. Just to see it works. Can we get hold of it? Hacking. I mean, when we work with Google Gemini, it has a lot of holes because it's using a lot of open source code, which are available outside to everybody. Well, guess what the bad guys are doing? They're looking at the open source like, yeah, if anybody is using it, I know how to crack this thing because I've been practicing full time. So we worked and we've patched up a lot of things. So yeah, I mean, cybersecurity is a nightmare by, now AI is hurting and helping. I mean, for example, today we are processing approximately 350,000 syslog, applog a minute. 1 minute there's no way human beings can look and say, well, right, this looks fine, this looks fishy. So you run the algorithm, it gives you a starting point, you throw it to people, and then they say, oh, no, this is fine. Oh, this is this, let me go
So
double
for people
check.
to understand, that's sort of an AI algorithm that you have to make sure that there's no one hacking into the system.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, just to make sure we made it clear, because I didn't know what a syslog was. but that's part of the preventive measure. And,
exactly.
and it goes back to the budget,
yes,
right? There is a cost attached to that,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Of being able to have those measures in place. Right?
That's
I'm
correct.
sure that's part of the ask of the budget.
And I would say that since I have come, our cybersecurity team has doubled, just 2 years, thanks to Governor again. We didn't have chief cyber officer, Governor appointed Colin. We didn't have, thanks to him, thanks to Governor, thanks to legislature. Now since I have come in, it's doubled. And we are doing, not only helping the executive agencies, we are helping counties and cities. There are 174 entities subscribe, send the data, we process it, and they subscribe, and we help them. I mean, we work with all counties and villages you can think of, including, big 5 cities. Our JSOC runs in the city along with, FBI and city and state, because cybersecurity is kind of a team sport.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to you probably is going to happen to me, so why don't we share information so that, if it happens to me, now we can protect others and vice versa. But yeah, the application of AI, the investment in the people, software, process, and training, protecting data, it's just daily grind, to be honest with you. Sometimes it's exhausting. Thanks that I have an awesome CISO, Chris Desane, and his team. Very diligent, very competent. And yeah, we need that area. We continue to hire. And it's like, again, our competition is private sector. So good luck with attracting talent. But now we are spreading everywhere in the state. We opened the office in New York City. Now we can tap downstate, and so on and so forth. So I think we're making a ton of progress, and but this is just part of the job. It's it's not going to get easier.
Well, he's hiring, folks. Thanks so much, Drew. I really appreciate the time.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. Hit the subscribe button right now so you can stay up to date on these news-making conversations about the issues impacting New Yorkers the most: power and politics.